The abyss stared back at Cassian Vale, black and endless, swallowing the beams of the Leviathan as it descended. The ocean pressure pressed against the hull like the weight of 1,000 mountains, and every creak of the submersible seemed magnified in the suffocating silence. Below, the abyssum rift yawned like a wound in the planet's crust, rumored to be cursed after previous expeditions vanished without a trace. Depths approaching 20,000 meters, Lieutenant Roan's voice cut through the intercom, calm but tense. Sensors are picking up unusual readings, energy fluctuations we can't identify. Cassian leaned forward, eyes locked on the monitors. The sonar returned jagged shapes, massive and angular, scattered across the ocean floor. They weren't natural formations. The patterns were deliberate, geometric, almost architectural. "Structures," Cassian murmured, his voice a mix of awe and unease. "Whatever's down there, it's not made by humans." Mira, the sub's engineer, frowned as she scanned the instruments. "And it's alive, Captain. The energy pulses. They're rhythmic like a heartbeat." Cassian swallowed hard. A heartbeat. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. He had explored trenches before, but nothing like this. Nothing that had a pulse. "Keep us steady," he ordered. "Slow descent. I want to see this with my own eyes before we make any decisions." The Leviathan moved cautiously through the inky water, its light slicing thin cones through the darkness. Shadows loomed and shifted just beyond the beams, twisting perception, making the trench seem alive. Cassian's pulse quickened as the shapes beneath them grew larger, forming spires and towers that stretched impossibly high. Are those ruins?" Mira whispered, her voice barely carried over the hum of the engines. "Yes," Cassian replied, awe-stricken. "A city, something ancient, alien, and it's awake." A ripple of movement flickered across the sonar. Something huge stirred among the shadows, moving with intent. Cassian felt the weight of the moment pressing down. This was no ordinary discovery. The city below had survived eons in darkness, and now, for the first time in millennia, it had noticed them. "Prepare the cameras," Cassian ordered. "We're about to enter history or nightmares." And as the Leviathan descended further, the abyss seemed to watch, silent and patient, hiding its secrets in the dark waters where broken dreams went to die. The Leviathan drifted through the towering ruins, its lights cutting through the suffocating darkness. Cassian leaned over the console, eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker on the sonar. The structures stretched endlessly in all directions, spires rising from the ocean floor like petrified giants, covered in strange markings that pulsed faintly, almost as if alive. Mira adjusted the sub's sensors. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. It's like the city itself is reacting to us." Cassian swallowed hard. Reacting or waiting? The thought made his chest tighten. The previous crews who had vanished here, those reports were always dismissed as exaggeration or misfortune. But now, faced with these impossible structures, he wondered if they had simply been caught by the city's awareness. The water seemed to thicken around them, currents moving against the sub with an intelligence of their own. Bioluminescent creatures swirled through the ruins, their light tracing patterns that made no natural sense, circles within triangles, lines folding into impossible geometry. Mira frowned. "They're communicating, or guiding us. I can't tell which." Cassian felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't shake the sense that the ruins were more than buildings. They were a memory, a consciousness preserved in stone and water, watching, testing, remembering. Then the hallucinations began. Soft whispers echoed in the sub's cabin, voices faint and distant at first, calling names, sometimes crew members, sometimes voices from Cassian's past. Shadows flickered across the viewport, forming shapes that seemed almost human, reaching toward the sub, dissolving before he could focus on them. Tension snapped when one of the junior crew members, Darren, reached for a console and disappeared, vanished into the darkness. A faint trail of glowing residue spiraled upward where he had been, leaving the cabin silent except for the eerie hum of the city. Cassian gritted his teeth. "Everyone stay together, document everything, but do not leave your stations. Whatever's here, it wants us to panic." The submersible's lights swept across the largest spire yet, revealing a doorway etched with luminous symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the city's heartbeat. The pulse grew stronger, beckoning, impossible to ignore. Cassian's hand hovered over the controls, torn between fear and fascination. He knew one thing with terrifying clarity the city remembered, and it had begun to interact. Every step forward was a gamble, a test of mind and will. Beyond that doorway lay the heart of the abyssum rift, and the abyss was ready to claim its next secrets. The pulse of the city grew stronger as the Leviathan edged closer to the central spire. Cassian could feel it through the hull, a vibration not from the engines or the water, but from the ruins themselves, a subtle rhythm that matched his heartbeat. The abyss was alive, aware, and it was watching. "Captain, the sonar is useless," Mira said, voice tight with unease. "The readings, everything's shifting. The corridors aren't fixed anymore, the walls, they move." Cassian nodded grimly. "It's adapting to us, mapping our fears, our thoughts. We need to stay calm, stay focused." But staying calm was impossible. The sub's lights reflected shadows that weren't there, twisted into faces he recognized. Old regrets, lost friends, even his father's accusing eyes. Crew members whispered to themselves, pointing at visions that disappeared when Cassian tried to look. One moment, the floor was solid; the next, the sub seemed to drift through voids where water and stone became indistinguishable. Mira shivered. "They're showing us memories, our own, or maybe their own, I can't tell anymore." Cassian gritted his teeth. "This city doesn't just house structures, it houses consciousness. It remembers and it wants something from us. Something it can't take if we hold on to ourselves." The first real danger struck when Darren reappeared at the viewport, floating outside as if suspended by invisible hands. His eyes were wide, unblinking, voice lost to them but lips moving in silent speech. The sub shook violently as currents twisted against it, guiding him back toward the heart of the city. Cassian felt a tug in his mind, a pull toward the glowing doorway ahead. "Focus," he shouted. "Don't let it control your thoughts." The bioluminescent patterns along the walls began to writhe and spiral, forming symbols that conveyed knowledge, warnings, and temptation all at once. Cassian realized the city wasn't merely sentient. It was teaching, testing, and seducing, probing the crew's ambitions, fears, and desires. And then, a voice, not over comms, not through speakers, but directly inside his mind, whispered, "Give yourself. Knowledge. Power. All is yours if you surrender." Cassian's grip tightened on the controls. He knew the city offered a choice: surrender, gaining unimaginable insight and control, or resist, risking madness, disappearance, or worse. He glanced at the crew, some pale and trembling, some staring in fascination at the impossible visions. The abyss was alive, and it hungered for more than bodies. It wanted minds, dreams, even souls. And the moment to choose was fast approaching. The Leviathan hovered at the heart of the city, its lights barely penetrating the thick, pulsating darkness. Cassian could feel the weight of the ruins pressing on him. The airless pressure, not just physical but mental, bending thoughts and stirring fears. Long buried, the city had learned their desires, their regrets, and it used them like instruments, plucking at strings only the human mind could provide. "Captain," Mira's voice trembled. I don't think we can resist it much longer. It knows everything about us." Cassian swallowed hard, gripping the controls. He could see the visions now, not just in the shadows but all around him. Lost loved ones, old mistakes, unfulfilled dreams, all presented with a clarity that made his chest ache. The city whispered in every corner of his mind, "Surrender. You will know everything. You will have everything. Only let go." Darren floated near the viewport again, pale and entranced, eyes fixed on a glowing spire that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the city's heartbeat. Cassian's stomach twisted. One wrong choice, and his crew would be lost, their minds absorbed, their dreams shattered. He took a deep breath, forcing clarity. "We stick together," he commanded. "We take what we can document and we leave. No one gives in." The currents shifted violently, as if the city itself were testing his resolve. The walls of the spire twisted and folded, corridors looping impossibly, lights and shadows blending into visions of the crew's deepest longings. Cassian reached out with the manipulator arm to secure data cores, and for a fleeting moment, the city's whisper promised him that it could restore the one regret he could never undo, the loss of his younger brother. But he resisted, focused. With Mira's help, he guided the sub through the labyrinthine heart, past glowing runes that pulsed like the lifeblood of the city. One final surge of pressure, one final scream of twisted currents, and the Leviathan broke free from the spire's influence, ascending through the abyss with the city's pulse fading behind them. Hours later, the sub reached the surface. The ocean was calm, deceptively so, reflecting moonlight like a mirror. The crew sat in silence, pale and trembling, changed in ways they could not yet comprehend. The city remained below, alive, patient, and eternal, its secrets intact, its hunger unsated. Cassian stared at the horizon, knowing that some dreams were never meant to be realized, and some waters hid truths that the human mind could never fully grasp. The abyss had claimed part of them, leaving their bodies intact, but their minds forever touched by the dark waters, their dreams broken, and their souls wary of the depths.